about Agile. I'm going to lead up sort of the cycle development of Agile, say a bit about that. So again, according to Dilbert, the project team, the key thing is the project team is responsible for its own failures. Don't blame anybody else. When I release these slides, I'll not put the copyrighted Dilbert stuff on them. The failure can only be blamed on, that other guy. And, the management doesn't manage who says the manager? Like, I'm discouraging you from expressing an opinion. In other words, I don't encourage communication in my team, do I? So, team organisation. So generally these days, I think it's true to say that these small teams are the way. So small software engineering groups, informally, without a rigid structure, we're going to talk about Scrum. Large projects, there might be a hierarchical structure. So someone was mentioning Infosys before. We talked to I think it's Pinnacle still. We're trying to work out how they organised a large project. So this is the company that builds, I think, 3 out of 4 of Australia's online banking systems. So they know what they're doing. And it isn't a kind of team of teams, so a scrum of scrums or something, but they might have 15 teams of 10 or 10 teams of 15. That's what they said when I asked them. That sort of thing. So organising a large project is still a bit tricky. So there might be, there's still got to be a way of dividing up large projects into smaller ones. Whereas Agile is sort of much more geared towards these smaller things. So in an informal team, the group acts as a whole. So if you've done Scrum, what this means, we'll talk about that later here if you haven't. So the group acts as a whole. In other words, the group assigns itself work. There's no, so that we can just almost take this as Scrum Master. Or serves the, as the external interface of the group, but doesn't allocate specific work. So there's no project manager. The group does that itself. Work is discussed and assigned by the group as a whole, and tasks are allocated by the group, not by somebody else. Okay? Key point, this is why you have to drop the course if you're not in the last year. The approach is successful for groups where all the members are experienced and competent. So in terms of the processes, let me give you this quite a history. And we're going to end up doing Scrum in this course, so I'll just time it such that we finish at the end. But it's useful to know some things and some truths and falsehoods here. So the waterfall method that we're talking about, sometimes you might have been presented it like this, that requirements flow through the design to implementation to verification and maintenance. That was never what they actually said. What they actually said was this, that there is some feedback, but you should really only be feeding back to the previous step. And if you have to feed back more than once, you're in a bit of trouble. So even the real waterfall model supposedly has this feedback in it. It still doesn't work, but the key thing is you're supposed to settle on your requirements. There's still some overlap, but once you've done the requirements, you're not meant to go back and revisit them, unless there's some really, really, really good reason. So that didn't work. So one thing that was missing there was testing. So this V model, we won't talk too much about these models in this course, but just to give you this background, V model, because it looks like a V when you draw it, but also V for validation. So again, there's requirements, analysis, high-level design, specification, and coding, but testing, testing, and testing. So you test each layer as you're doing it. Now, sort of problem is, as you can see, same sort of thing with waterfall. What if the requirements are wrong? We only sort of found that out at the end. So V for validation isn't the best way of doing things, but it does rather emphasize we need to do lots of testing, and it introduced this idea of unit testing, which we see as part of Agile as well. Another one is the prototyping model. So again, this is going to be partly incorporated into Agile. So the idea here with prototype is you build some prototype system that then you can put in front of users and get their feedback from, and if they like it, that's good. But then you have to go away and implement the real system. So the problem with this one is you're back to square one implementing the real system. You don't reuse that code. So the thing you're showing them in the prototype is maybe some mock-up, or not mock-up, but something that won't necessarily meet all their requirements, particularly for efficiency. So you might have So it costs you a lot of time that you just throw away that prototype. Agile's trying to avoid that. And incremental development also came around well before Agile. So you sort of interleave these different versions of the system doing different things. So you might be implementing one version, designing the next one, so on and so forth. So incrementally, having a series of releases is a bit of an Agile idea as well. And finally, the volumes model. I realise I'm just looking at that clock and I should be looking at my own. A bit wrong. So the volumes model talks about risk management. So his thing is, okay, always ask yourself what could be the worst thing that could happen? What could go wrong? And look at that. Try to fix that problem first. So you do it, again, a bunch of prototypes, but on each prototype you're saying, risk analysis, what could go wrong? Give me some requirements and then I need to verify and validate them. Then I do my plan and then I do it again. So maybe in there's some development. But you can see this is an iterative process, very agile. So for those of you, you should have seen the Agile Manifesto when we talked about this before. The key thing I'm going to emphasize again is that the things on the left are valued more than the things on the right, but that does not mean we do not do the things on the right. So we do use processes and tools, just different ones, but we value individuals and interactions. We do documentation, but not necessarily document everything before we do software. We may need to negotiate contracts, but we also focus more on the customer collaboration. And we may have a plan, we are going to have an agile plan, but we have to make that responsive to change. So I also have used this one before, maybe not for you, but for extreme programming, this idea of testing, so this idea of pair programming, unit testing, lots and lots of interaction between people in the team on a daily basis, hourly, daily. So lots and lots of checking to make sure everything is right all the time. And so you might divide your thing up into the stand-ups are once a day. When there's user acceptance testing, there's an iteration plan and a release plan. So lots and lots of that. So maybe we don't need to say too much about the incremental, small releases, simple design, testing, test first development. So some people like test-driven development. Some people use refactoring. So these are more technical things that are done in extreme programming, as well as pair programming, continuous integration, sustainable pace. So one thing about that death march thing, remember, was, oh yeah, we just work harder sort of thing. Extreme programming guys said, okay, we want to do this sustainable pace. That's like I talked about Toyota. Overworking, if the machine breaks down, if people are overworking, they're going to make mistakes. So extreme programming said we don't want to have to force people to do that. We want to maintain a sustainable pace. The on-site customer is recommended, but not always possible. So Scrum, as we saw in 2911, for those who've done it, is much more kind of intermediate managed sort of process where you divide things up into sprints. The sprints are 2 to 4 weeks. You'll have 2-week sprints. There's a stand-up meeting every day. So it's called a Scrum meeting here. Usually it's called stand-up these days. Every day, stand-up. So there's a sprint backlog. You're taking items from the backlog, working on those, and you're aiming to get some kind of minimal viable product, potentially shippable, something that users could actually use, is what you're aiming for your first release. So you will also be more familiar with the Scrum roles than they would have been last year. So there's the developer, every one of you is going to be a developer. Then there's the product owner and the Scrum master. So the Scrum master is the facilitator, troubleshooter. The product owner represents the end users and tells when things are done. Usually these roles can be fixed. The Atlassian they actually rotate these roles in the course of a project, so some people think that's okay too. I'm not convinced it's a great idea in that sometimes there's a bit of confusion about who's doing what this week, and so it doesn't really matter. You can do whatever you think works for your team, so long as it's actually working. But we will follow Scrum in this course. And Gilbert again on Agile. Gilbert is well and truly ahead of the curve when it comes to stuff. He's been doing Agile for years. How's the coding coming along? Oh, some morons might change the methodology. Oh, what does it mean? So Agile give me 3 more programmers.
跟他提供位了。
Doing more work with your people. Or find some words that mean that. And then tell me.
2小时讲出了3小时的量。
Okay, so key thing today is those people need to change the sense, you need to change the sense to concept.